Hey, it's Coach Hicks. So let's talk about defensive player positions when evaluating the differences between Canadian football and American football. So I'll tell you right off the bat, the big difference is that we have an additional player, and that additional player comes into a new role. And so the new role is a new position that doesn't necessarily exist in the American football, and that is the role of a defensive halfback. So in Canadian football, when we speak of the halfback, we are not speaking about the running back, we're actually speaking about a player that plays on defense. Another significant difference is the elimination of a strong safety. So in most schemes, so instead of going with two safeties, one of them's a free safety, one of them's a strong safety. For the most part, we eliminate the strong safety player position and we go with one safety. So let's get right into it. So we have our center here, and then in front of the center, like in regular football, we have a defensive line. Now, at the lower levels, there is not much of a difference between the characteristics of these players here. So they are generally bigger players, they are stronger, they are generally aggressive, and these are, in lower levels, primarily run stoppers, and they also have pass rush capabilities. Now, once we get to a higher level, these two guys that play outside here, they are more of your pass rush types. So they don't necessarily have to be as big as your typical defensive lineman, but they have to have extreme speed and also be able to stop the run. Whereas these two players inside are most often going to be slightly bigger, and they're going to be a little more focused on run stopping more than pass rushing. Now, behind them, I'm going to start with two backers. So we're going to go with a Mike backer and a weak side backer. So we have a middle linebacker, we have a weak side backer, and these linebackers are your typical linebackers. That doesn't change. So we are talking about people who are primarily run stoppers, but who are also athletic enough to be able to cover in the pass and protect in the pass. Now, we do have a hybrid player, and that is the Sam linebacker. So the Sam linebacker in Canadian football is typically a player who has characteristics of a linebacker. He might be a little smaller, but he is definitely more athletic than a linebacker. So whereas a linebacker's typical focus is going to be run first, a Sam backer will also be very, very involved in the pass. We tend to see a lot of spread formations where the offense doesn't necessarily have a fullback, but they have a fifth receiver out there, and it's often the Sam linebacker that is called upon, or the strong side linebacker that is called upon to cover that extra receiver. So that is the hybrid player that we have there. Now, if you go over the rest here, this is when we get our new position, where we get what we call defensive halfbacks. Now, the halfback is considered a defensive back. Oftentimes, they will be slightly smaller than a linebacker, but almost as physical. Because of their positioning and how close they are to the box, halfbacks often are called upon to support against the run. Now, so because of that, they do need to be, a strong defensive back. But they are also primarily defensive backs, which means they'll be matched up against the slot backs, often the fastest guys on the team, and they do have to defend against the pass. Next, we have our corners. Corners, that doesn't change. Primarily pass first defenders. And, well, that's it. They're pass first defenders. Next, we have our free safety. And so our free safety, this is your general. He's the person who has the best view on the field, the person who's able to identify formations, oftentimes to be able to identify a play and be able to have very good play recognition. They primarily will have pass responsibilities. However, in some defensive schemes, the safeties also have run support responsibilities. And so those are the defensive positions when we're talking about Canadian football. As you can see, the halfback is the new position. And that's that.